Okay, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice, and we have a special guest here today, Mr. Patrick Stanley. We're going to introduce you in a second properly, Patrick, but we've been talking about what you've been working on so many times on the podcast, Citycoin, Miamicoin. We're going to go into that whole world in a second. But also we've got here Jack Butcher from Visualize Value and Trung Fan, me Master Flex himself, and I'm Bilal Zaidi. So Patrick, let's get straight into it, man. Like, we've been really excited about his project. We talked about it in the last episode. What is Citycoin and how have you been involved with it?
Yeah, sure. So Citycoins are a way for people to support their favorite cities. I'm one of the community leads at Citycoins. Just an open source project anyone can contribute to. Essentially each city has its own city-based token. And in a nutshell, you can program these tokens if you're a developer to create cool apps. And then the city is ongoingly getting 30% of all revenue that is coming in from miners mining the Citycoin. And thus far, City of Miami in the past 49 days has earned about $7 million. It's on pace to, it is mental, and it's on pace to offset roughly 10% of their annual budget. Quick math on that is if the token were to increase in value 10x and the mining throughput increase in value 10x, hypothetically, 15x, hypothetically, the citizens of Miami could argue for not paying taxes.
That's wild.
Yo.
Everyone's ears just perked up there.
Right there, right?
Let's start again and say that one line. No, that's amazing. All right. So, and obviously this is all very new. We know that Mayor Suarez, he's been kind of making waves over the last year or so, year and a half, because he's been doing a lot of innovative stuff, poaching a lot of people from San Francisco and the Bay Area, and just very open to experimenting with crypto, especially. But yeah, I know you and Jack already know each other. So Jack, did you have anything else you wanted to ask before we kind of went into more stuff?
No, I think maybe we go into like a more philosophical discussion about memes and financial instruments and like the idea of, that thing happening with Mayor Suarez. I don't know the exact date, but in the middle of the pandemic, the world is changing, and people who like recognize the power of network building, community building, the internet, like messaging was the first wave of it. So he figured out a way to attract people to Miami, get like tech talent into Miami. And then Patrick and Citycoin is kind of the next phase out of that, right? How do you turn that momentum into a financial reward for the people that believe in it, which is fascinating to me.
Thank you. So I think something happened. Well, I know something happened when the pandemic started. Essentially, that was like the year the internet began, because remote work as a default, remote work became the default. And so people started shopping for cities like they were shopping for products, like they shop for a municipality. I know, Jack's probably been, I'm not going to disclose Jack's location, but Jack has been hopping around. Jack's been hopping around from what I know. This new archetype that Mayor Suarez has embodied has sprung up as well, which is this archetype our friend Balaji Srinivasan likes to call CEO of the city. So the CEO of a city actively recruits talent and customers to their product, which is their city. And typically you need to recruit them inside the confines of the municipality, like within the border, and have them move there, have them visit there, spend money, yada, yada. And essentially there's a huge broad thesis that like cities are going to start competing more and more for customers, AKA citizens and visitors. And any mayor who's on Twitter essentially can't just speak to their own constituency. They have to make out-group arguments now to pull talented people into their in-group, i.e. their citizen base. With Citycoins, it allows like mayors to have an additional tool, whereas instead of just having to actively recruit people to move their physical person, they can actually move their assets. So a good analogy, that old phrase, like think globally, but act locally. Like that phrase existed because people were largely immobile, both their person and their assets. And so, Citycoin, now that Citycoins exists, and remote work is a default, both people's physical person and their assets can move very, very quickly. So that phrase should really be like, think globally and act globally now, because you can, move to a different city if you want to, or you could have capital flight at the speed of light. And one more point I'll make on Citycoins essentially is like, you can kind of view them like a governance token in a way. So, if you hold a Citycoin, you're committed to the city. If you mine or buy Citycoins, you're bullish on city leadership. Suarez. If you sell Citycoins, a specific Citycoin, it means you're bearish on city leadership, or the capital allocation thereof of that city leadership. I don't know if I should keep going on, but I feel like
great.
I'm throwing a lot of concepts at you. I have two more if you want me to just like get them out of the way.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming, dude.
Okay, so essentially, like, in the old world, you also had only two forms of voting. You could vote with your ballot, and you could vote with your feet. Voting with your ballot kind of stinks because like 50% of the time you kind of hate the results, and even when you do get the person in office, oftentimes they don't actually do what they say they're going to do. And that, whereas with you vote with your feet, it's kind of hard if you have like a baby or a family. It's like hard to like, uproot your family, like move to another city so easily. And so that's like, that does happen in many regards. People will like move out of San Francisco, or like, move out of New York to a better tax climate, a better like temperature climate, maybe even better startup climate. But this third, so that's like voice and exit. So you have like ballot is voice, feed is exit. Now this third option, Citycoins, is like a ongoing directional thumbs up or thumbs down that you're voting at all times and in real time. And so that's both voice and exit. You have capital flight at the speed of light. You can move from SFO coin in the future to MIA coin if you don't like what's going on in SFO, and vice versa. And so I think all these sort of like themes and kind of like what I was describing from like a mechanical standpoint, I think are going to have a big impact over this decade. Assuming the project continues to gain steam like it is.
Patrick, could you actually talk more about specifically the Miamicoin project? How did you kind of get involved, and also just from Citycoin more philosophically, what's kind of the underpinning of that whole thing? What are the inspirations and the kind of problem to solve roadmap that you guys took to kind of create that?
It's probably a bunch of inspirations, but back in April, I was on a Twitter Spaces call, and the idea just like snapped into place. And my mind was very prepared for an idea like this to snap into place. I've been like super into Bitcoin and crypto and game theory and politics and governance, all that stuff for like over a decade. Some of those things over a decade, some of the things obviously, prior, like after Bitcoin got created. And so the game theory is actually what was the aha moment for me. Essentially, the aha moment was if we as a community fair launch a token and have a reserved wallet that is credit only, it is credited only, it just grows in value over time, it becomes a fiduciary and moral duty for the city to claim that wallet. And when they claim that wallet, boom, you now have a market relationship between the city and the market that didn't exist before. And you can't make that argument for municipal bonds because that's just issuance of debt. It doesn't change wildly in the market. Right. It can't 10 or 100x because people like the coin. With municipal debt, for example, if the spreads, if there's a lot of money being made, that means like the city's about to go bankrupt, and that's not a good situation. And most people don't hold municipal debt. It's like large institutions and sovereigns. So it's like not very sexy, not like municipal debt has its purpose, but like it is like it's done against people's will. It's like the issue debt and then rake it from the tax base.
Right.
Citycoins instead of out of obligation, it's out of opportunity. So people can be sort of rooting in success of the city. So the idea snapped in place in April, and I was kind of like talking to a bunch of people who were interested in the idea as well. and we wanted to do it really, really quickly because who knows how long the bull market's going to last, and you want to reach like a high floor, so you have a higher chance of survival. I think we're there, or at least we have the momentum now. And a bunch of just like civic-minded hackers like came together and put the code together. Reviewed it with a bunch of like PhDs, distributed systems from Princeton, who were I'd worked with previously. And then we as a community told the city about this. We were like, you guys are going to earn like $50 to $100 million in the next year if you claim this. And Suarez was, Suarez is a fast moving dude, by the way. Yeah. Like he's operating that thing like a startup, which I don't think is like, that's tough to imitate for most elected mayors. But he apparently behind closed doors with his lawyers and his chief innovation. I don't know if his chief innovation officer said this, but a lot of the crypto stuff comes across their desks, and a lot of it's like like a lot of crypto is just like kind of bullshit. But they were like this guy's crazy, and he doesn't know what he probably doesn't know what he's talking about. But let's continue talking to him. And
this is referring to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
They thought it was crazy. They thought it was totally crazy. It turned out like my sort of like prediction of like how much they'll make in the first week, first month,
right.
Has all been meeting or exceeding actually what I originally told them.
Crazy like a fox, bro. Crazy like a fox.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We essentially said, hey, we're not going to wait for you to accept this in advance. We're just going to launch this, and it's going to start accruing value. If you want to claim it, you can claim it at any time. You're the only people that can claim it. And so we did that, 50 days ago, and 10 days. Geez, I can't believe it's only 10 days. 10 days ago, the city accepted the wallet when it was worth $5 million. Now it's like $7 million. Well, that money is automatically going to be turned into USD for them initially until they can hold crypto on their balance sheet. They did a ton of due diligence. Like they had their legal team, look at this and they're like, well, no primary issuer, no pre-mine, no ICO. Like this thing is something different. This is not a security. This is not a municipal bond. This is a fundamental breakthrough. Their procurement team, kind of like worked on kind of like a donation agreement from the protocol to them. So like kudos to that government for operating like a startup and like jumping over hurdles to figure things out instead of being lethargic and lazy about the whole situation. And I think now that they trailblazed, a lot of other cities are going to want it. Like, I'm not going to name names, but like there's some,
name names, man. That's what we're here for.
Yo, we'll bleep them
Exclusive.
all out. Dude.
There's some interest from like New York City and Reno, Nevada.
Right. You
can call this like unofficial official interest. People are just like sniffing around.
I just wanted to touch back on something you mentioned and I think it's really important. Is like, you mentioned they're like, okay, we're looking through this. There's no primary issuer. There's no ICO. Could you explain to listeners why that is such a big breakthrough and the importance of that?
Yeah, sure. So most coin projects, because their meme is not very strong, they have to do an ICO. So that they can, essentially they have to reserve some funds for themselves. And it's like, sometimes it makes sense to do. Sometimes it's just outright greedy. I think probably 80+% of the time, it's just outright greed. People want to get rich quick and they see an opportunity. Maybe 20% of the time, it's like, we feel we need an ICO because not everyone believes in this project. And we need time for it to incubate. And we need the money to operate, which is like justifiable. In those situations where you need the money, you may need to register as a security because you are a primary issuer who essentially owns, essentially is issuing that cap table, the blockchain, and you're the first person to hold it. Or like if you reserve some tokens for some VCs, but it's not open to the public, like again, you're kind of acting as a primary issuer there. Because you're doing that, you're largely responsible for issuing what can be construed as a security. I'm not necessarily saying you do things out of trying to avoid security status or not. I'm just saying ICO. A lot of ICOs probably are securities in the traditional sense. And I think they can move away from securities over time, but they kind of like catch themselves in like a trap early on that they have to get out of over time. That's more difficult. If you take a kind of like in many cases less greedy approach, and you have a community launch the token in a way where there was no central party launching it. There was no central party benefiting from the launch over anyone else. Like essentially what Bitcoin did. Like honestly, there's a lesson from Bitcoin people still haven't picked up, and we feel that as a community, we feel like we took that lesson from Satoshi. Like just start with mining only, and so we did that. So there was zero Miamicoin that existed in the first on day one, and no one owned Miamicoin. Not me, not anyone. If you wanted to own it, you had to mine it. So that's doing useful work. And many people were mining it. A lot of people don't even know who those people are, but I didn't even mine the first block either. So essentially the community launched it. And its origin story too is like fair. It's not like this is some VC coin where, Patrick got rich at the expense of Miami citizens. It's like, no, this is more like a public resource that like sprung out of the ground.
No, so to summarize, I just want to say, sorry guys, super quickly, was like when they looked at everything you mentioned, they're like, okay, it's not clear that anyone is trying to profit from it, right? It's like that we said, it's community built, and the ICO element was kind of regulatory. So there's like two huge hurdles where if they had to explain to the citizens or somebody else within government, there's like right out of the way, right? There's like these
it's right away. Like, it's like what, like who's getting rich? It's like, well, and no one's getting rich upon launch. Like, the citizens of Miami are becoming well off because they're benefiting from the 30% of the funds from miners going directly toward the city. It's like an open source protocol too. Like if you launch and you're holding a bunch of coins, it's kind of like, okay, you're kind of a platform until proven otherwise. So this is more like open source protocol. This is closer to Bitcoin. This is closer to like, hackers hacking on a city-based token.
So Patrick, I just had a question for you because when we talked about this last time, it was kind of mind-bending for me because I'm like, all right, we get crypto, we get the markets, the efficiency of the markets, but we haven't really seen anyone do anything close to this as it relates to government or like local government. So we've talked a little bit about this in a past episode when we talked about philanthropy. And I know this isn't about philanthropy, but the similarity I'm seeing is that when a city takes money, so Mayor Suarez claims the bag and his budget is now 10% or 20%, whatever it ends up being, greater than before, then that government or that city has a chance to deploy those funds and develop projects or roads or infrastructure or whatever else it would normally spend its money on. I don't know the ins and outs of that.
Or new things like recruit crypto capitalists.
Exactly. So whatever they choose to, and maybe a part of that whole process is people get to vote and the governance part comes into it there. But just what about on the flip side? So if we fast forward a few years and this is, widespread, and let's say it's no longer 10%, but it's actually 50 or 60 or even 90% because there's so many people putting their money into this. And I don't know if there's something in the design that wouldn't even allow this to happen, but let's just say for the sake of my question, it is.
Yeah, it's a good question.
What happens with the fluctuations of that coming up and down? Because if all of a sudden, like San Francisco last year, a lot of people left, and let's say people were dumping their SFO coin, what would then happen to the plans for that city that they thought they were going to have this money and they no longer have that? How do you account for that?
Cities should convert into USD for whatever they want to keep stable for. Even USD is losing like 10% of value every year now, but you want to keep it relatively stable, like going to USD for like the year,
Got it.
And then make the budget for it. It's like, cool, we got.
So once they claim it, convert it, then they know the confirmed amount. So it's similar to how like a charity would have to convert their money to dollars or whatever, and then say, here's a plan for the next few years of developing this or something like that.
Exactly. There's another interesting point there about city as capital allocator as graded and judged by the market. that's an interesting concept we should maybe touch on for a second. But the city's free to use those funds however they like, and the market might say, we don't like that, so there's a sell off. You're not getting like a granular view of what the market really does and doesn't like. It's like, what did I do wrong? Like, was it the homeless, the feces all over the streets, or was it like us not putting school back in session, or was it us, not housing the homeless? Or like, what was it? Or was it us not being crypto focused enough? What was it? And I think there are applications that are being built by the Citycoins community that allow for more granular, sort of like civic-minded things to be voted on by coin holders. And cities can say, we get to determine what we do with all of our funds. We're going to designate 5% of our funds for coin voting and just see how it goes as a trial. And maybe people are just like, they're voting on like recruit more crypto startups, recruit more people to build on Miamicoin, that kind of thing. Like that's possible, but it's up to the city's discretion. The city can decide that.
How important would that voting mechanism be that X amount of coin holders are based locally? Or does that not? What were to happen if 90% were outside of the city? And there's like,
you're going to get right. You're going to get experimentation. So you're going to have some cities that are like, we are the world, and we value the whole global market because that makes the city function, and therefore we let every one coin, one vote, and that's a very extreme. That's a very extreme sort of thing, where you're essentially saying the protocol is the city. And that's a very extreme thing, by the way. Like, so I think some cities will do it, but it'll be an experiment. It's like the protocol is the city, and you are a citizen if you are a stakeholder, and therefore the government is actually the government is customer run as opposed to employee run. Now, if you move along the spectrum to government is employee run, government's making all the decisions, and it's gonna be hard for them not to listen to the markets, honestly. But they might say, we're not listening to the markets. We're gonna spend it on recruiting homeless people. We're gonna do all like bad things. I don't know. We're gonna do like stupid things that you shouldn't do. And the market punishes them. And they decide, well, what does the market know? We're gonna run ourselves into the ground, and we'll do what we think is best. That said, a lot of cities will know what their material problems are on the ground. They're kind of best angled to kind of know what those are in some ways. They might just decide. I also think there's like a third version where the cities just do a KYC on coin holders who live in their city. They say, we apply like 100x weight to the people who are in the city, and we apply 1x weight to people who don't live in the city. So if you're a huge whale outside the city, you can have a vote, or maybe you have no vote, but maybe you have a vote, and we just don't weight it as much as if you were a citizen. If you're a citizen, it's like you're a coin holder on steroids. But all this government stuff is like, that's for the community and the city to decide for themselves. That's a relationship that they will broker themselves. That won't be my decision.
And sorry, Patrick, I'm just going to share my screen for a quick second here. This is something I shared in the last episode. So can you see the tweet on the screen from Ryan Hoover, the founder of Product Hunt? So we don't have to read out the whole thing, but essentially for people only listening and not watching, we shared this in the last episode. So this was posted on August 31st, and it was, he said, since August 9th, essentially he's made a bunch of money mining Miamicoin. And the best part, I can stick MIA to earn another 20,000 stacks, STX, which is basically 30 grand every month.
And those stacks earn 10% APY in Bitcoin every year.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to need to go into a couple of things here about stacks and what that is as well. But I know people listening to this, the show is called Not Investment Advice, but there are people here who are definitely trying to figure out how to make money in their own lives. And I mean, a lot of people listening to this are interested in crypto. So again, not investment advice, but knowing that Ryan is a pretty legit dude, and he's normally on the cutting edge of trying out new products. He obviously gets to see a lot of that through his fund and Product Hunt. Could you explain how this actually works, and how does someone go about doing this in the first place?
Yeah, so remember how I was saying how the city earns 30% of what the miners are forwarding, of the currency that miners are forwarding into it? That currency is called stacks. And I'll get into stacks in a bit. But 70%, the remaining 70% gets forwarded in a pro rata way to all of that specific Citycoins holders. So if you hold Miamicoin, you're getting your pro rata amount of that remaining 70% sort of sent to you. It's divvied up among the community of people who have temporarily locked their coins. So like they do this, they perform this function called stacking, where like they click a button and their funds are inaccessible for essentially, 2 weeks to like a year and a half. And they can determine that amount of time. And during that time, they're receiving Stacks funds in a pro rata way.
Patrick, is that similar to staking on other, or is it different?
If you squint and like look and like stand back like miles, yes, it's very similar. When you look at it close up, it's very different.
Like, so technically it's different, but the function of increasing your wallet size essentially is similar, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more secure than staking, and I also think it's better than staking. I'll tell you why. If you stake a coin like ETH, for example, you earn ETH, so you earn more of the native coin. You're kind of earning that coin running in place as well. The fact is like everyone's sort of getting diluted over time, and you avoid some dilution if you lock your coins in. With stacking, you're not earning the native token, you're earning a base currency that's being forwarded in. So with stacks, you earn Bitcoin because miners who are mining stacks are forwarding Bitcoin, and people who hold stacks, just like Miamicoin, people who hold stacks are locking them and earning that Bitcoin yield. That's also a replicable model. You can, Miamicoin uses stacking. Stacks uses stacking. You could do this all day. And what's interesting about this too is like it's all denominated in Bitcoin. So it's not like you're getting more altcoin. Like your everything is being measured in the internet's currency, which is Bitcoin.
You're not getting some random coin. Like I think ETH is a different example because it's at least a prominent one with a significant market cap. But the one I'm thinking of is like Nexo tokens or Celsius rewards if you're using like a centralized service like that. So
it's like whatever. I like it.
You're not getting a second best coin. You're not getting a second best coin.
Exactly. It's like I'm really all in on this coin, huh? But I think yeah, seriously. But also like mining these coins requires a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin sort of backed currency like Stacks. So like it's not just like a free ride where you're just like, boom, I'm rich, I'm going to hold a bunch of tokens and just earn more. It's like, there's another side of this market that needs to funnel these coins, and they're funneling these coins because there's demand for the coins. There's like utility for it. With Miamicoin and Stacks, you can use them as fuel for smart contracts if you want to, and they are being used for that. And there's real demand for that. But you could also just view, when I like squint and I like look at these two things, I view Stacks as smart contracts for Bitcoin, and it's got its own token. So Bitcoin sovereign money, and you separate that layer with the smart contract layer instead of trying to like fuse them together in some kind of like Quasimodo sort of thing where you're like, we're sound money, but we're also smart contracts. It's like a measuring stick measuring itself. It's like that doesn't really work, I don't think. We separate that layer. So you have smart contracts and then sovereign money. Miamicoin is I view it like a governance token, essentially, for specific cities.
So Patrick, sorry to get tactical, but let's say, forget the listeners for a minute. I'm being selfish. I want to do what Ryan's done. Like, where do I go to set up a wallet, and what do I need to transfer in, a Bitcoin, or do I need to buy Stacks somewhere and put it in? And I'm just curious, like, what that actually looks like.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't being clear.
No.
So
that was a good point you already shared, but yeah.
So you can get a stack. You can get a Stacks wallet at hiro.so/wallet. Go to the web wallet, not the downloadable wallet, because the web wallet supports Miamicoin. And then you can go to I think it's like minemiamicoin.com or minecitycoins.com. I could be wrong on one of those, but I think it's minemiamicoin.com. I should know that. And you'll be able to sign in with your web wallet and forward Stacks as a miner. So you'll be able to mine these coins with your stacks. You got to buy the stacks too, like buy them on okcoin.com or wherever on Binance or whatever. You forward those stacks into the mining mechanism, and that's a one-way process. You don't get those stacks back. That's like if you don't win that block, it's a donation. So like what people are doing is they're mining over many blocks. They'll mine over like 100 blocks and like hope they win one. And mining has really picked up, though. I have to say, it's almost like I think it's like $10,000 $9,000 a block. Like every 10 minutes, $9,000 are being mined.
It just to confirm, it is Miamicoin.com. I just put that in the URL.
Yeah.
And so does that 10K, does that mean that's the minimum amount you need to be putting in?
No, it's just the aggregate amount that everyone's mining at the same time. There's like 30 miners at any given time, generally.
Got it.
And so you have like a long tail, like there'll be some whale that's like mining 10%. And then asymptotically kind of approaches like nothing essentially.
Bilal actually will be at the very end, starting in about an hour.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
Good thing I got Stacks wallet already from all those BTC domains we got, which we also talked about.
Actually, I was actually hoping Patrick to stay on this kind of tactical angle that Bilal started. So I live in Vancouver, BC. I'd love to hear, like, if I wanted to launch or somebody wanted to launch Vancouver Coin, like, how do we do this? And what is the process?
Anyone can do it. I will say, like, the technical chops to like get, there's a lot of things involved. You essentially we should move as a community and do them like one by one, and then and then open it up. That's like the expectations I think we should set for the community. So like 6 months from now or whatever, maybe like 200 to 500 qualified cities as qualified by the community, the open source community. Like maybe they publish a list on GitHub. Say these cities can launch next because we want to make sure the brand remains good. Like we don't want someone launching like Kabul coin, and I think
totally,
that'd be bad. Or Pyongyang coin or whatever. Essentially, like we're on first base right now. Like we launched Miamicoin, it's been a wild success, and we want to continue as a community supporting Miami, like and the mayor and the developer ecosystem. Long story short, community is working on a mechanism for cities to self-launch, so they can like turn a key and then boom, it's on. And that might be like them putting laser beams in their eyes or something whimsical that is like undeniable, where like people are like, oh shoot, this mayor is turning on their Citycoin. We know that the time is now to begin mining it, kind of thing. And like the community pushes the code to allow miners to signal activation of mining, and then boom, it's activated. I'd say for the time being, like maybe just hang tight for the time being. And the community will kind of like gradually open up the ability to do it in a self-serve way.
So like, so 5 to 10 years, just, or even shorter, like there's best case scenario, it's just going to be turnkey. Yeah. Like you guys will have figured out all the kinks, seen how Miami played out, and like figured out all the issues, and like, okay, I just turn it on, and like, it's just going to happen. Yeah.
My ideal scenario is mayors just put like laser beams in their eyes for like 2 days, and it requires people to say, what are they doing that for? And it's an easy thing for the community to say, mayor, just put laser beams in your damn eyes for like 2 days. Like just putting your eyes for 30 minutes, maybe that's the threshold, but do it. And it gives the community a call to action to get their mayor to do something. And it creates like a dance between the mayor being willing to do the Citycoin, and the city showing support and trying to get the mayor to do it.
I love that. that. I think Jack has a question about this. One more question that I kind of had written down here was, could you Steelman? I know Balaji loves Steelmanning things. What is the Steelman argument against what you're doing that you've had to deal with, and the criticisms that maybe some are not valid or misunderstanding, but which ones are the most valid?
Someone could say, could this lead to governments catering only to people who hold coins? And it's kind of a flimsy argument because governments have a monopoly on violence, and they're not going to. The reality is they're not going to stop taxing their citizens. Like that's pretty nice, like socially acceptable thing that they're able to do ongoingly, and I think they'll continue to do that. So that's probably one argument. It's like is the government going to finally start serving its customers? Like that's one. Or another on a national scale would be like what happens if you launch? I don't know if this is a good argument, but like what happens if you launch country coin? Doesn't this make governments more efficient and less willing to fund wars and resort to means of violence to justify their power and to also establish themselves as a nation state, yada yada. That is an argument. I mean, like nation states have only been around for in their modern sense for like the past couple hundred years.
Yeah, 300-400.
Yeah, since like maybe like 1780.
Australia?
Yeah, like I think it's like 17.
I think 1630s, 16 end of the 100 years or something like that.
I like Trung saying I think, but he knows the exact date for sure. He's a history buff.
No, I think Patrick is going. I think his influences and philosophy.
Yeah, the Treaty of Westphalia is definitely a big thing there. But essentially, like the logic of violence changed, and nations grew very large, and in order to kind of like protect their citizens.
Right.
Protect. You can't marshal enough resources in the industrial age without. Well, real quick. Part of the reason nation states did so well is because the industrial age rose, and people were able to like go to factories. They were able to earn more and be off of subsistence living, meaning they can be taxed directly by governments, like individually, as opposed to just a few wealthy individuals being taxed. And so because that was possible, sort of democracy in its current form was possible. Democracy is kind of like I don't know. I'll comment on that later. But like essentially, modern day democracy is possible. You can vote, yada yada. You're being taxed as an individual, but the fact that you can tax all individuals and not have to negotiate with like a few like rich lords meant that you could raise huge armies and justify the sort of nationalistic identity. The problem is there's a cycle where just like with the Catholic Church or whatever, they'll charge more and more for doing less and less of a good job over time. That's kind of like where we're at now. Like we still have the army, but we still have the army, so therefore we still have the country. But logic of violence is changing again. I think people aren't robbing banks anymore. They're robbing people digitally. So I just think I don't know. I don't even know what my point was there. Just making a statement like nation states are like a temporary phenomenon. I don't think they're going to exist in their current format 100 years from now, maybe even 30 years from now. I think people have new ways of protecting themselves from violence, and they also have new ways of organizing themselves. So like I kind of view all these cryptos like their own countries. Like I view Bitcoin like a country. I view Ethereum like a country. They all have their own different ideologies, but we're specifically building on Bitcoin because we think it has the longest chance of success, and it's not going to change. And it's already like the internet's money. Like it's a category winner, and you can tell that's the case because you can look at the market cap.
No, that makes sense. I think I just want to add the one point. I think what you said was very interesting. Is the idea of it's the logic behind the existence of nation states is historically, if you look at a long timeline, it's pretty recent, and the logic for having it moving forward is based on technologies like Bitcoin and whatever. And the internet world we're living in maybe don't exist anymore, which is why Miamicoin and Citycoin is such an interesting project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of view like blockchains like cap tables too, and all of us probably own some Bitcoin, so we're on the Bitcoin cap table. So we kind of work for Bitcoin. Like the meme is installed in our mind. I think similarly, people who want to do work on behalf of Miami or like root for Miami should be able to do so in a way that's not compulsory, but do so in a way that's out of opportunity. And so it'd be kind of cool if people reorganize themselves through like their stake of holdings and kind of keeping governments accountable, and making them more efficient, like grading them in real time in the market.
That was a great conversation. I was just sitting back enjoying it.
And Jack and I have talked about this for like hours already too. So he's like,
yeah. Well, I was curious. Like, I was wondering what is that popular topic between you guys? I know you swapped tons of DMs and chatted a lot. What is kind of top of mind for the both of you when you're talking?
I think the memes subject is really the overarching thing, and the expanding definition of meme. Like if you asked 10 people on the street what a meme is, they'd be like, oh, it's one of those photos with text on the top and the bottom. It's like, no, it's like this unit of communication that's graded on how fast it moves and how good of a job it does at sticking in somebody's head. And we've talked about this on this podcast. Maybe every episode it sneaks in somewhere is like what technology is doing as a layer to stories. So if you believe in something, then blockchain specifically create markets for you to bet on that thing with way less friction than ever has existed before. And I got like tip my hat to having the to thinking big enough to apply that to a city, because it's no different than is different, but the method or the layer that you're applying is no different than someone betting on like Nyan cat, right? I want to own the original Nyan cat and we're going to fractionalize this thing and it's going to spread around the internet forever. A city with like hundreds of years of culture and like, it's hard to imagine a meme. Like there are sports teams, there are things that people are just so attached to that they can see like tangible return from, and they have a very like visceral relationship with. That I think this is a Naval thread we'll have to dig up. It was something to do with like blockchains turn everything into a market.
Yeah. So I think I have his quote memorized because it was at my summit I put on and I invited him to it. And I love the quote so much is the reason. But he said, Satoshi brought markets to computer networks, and naturally markets will go from computer networks to physical networks. And my takeaway from that was like, I don't even know if he could probably even make it more concise. And maybe this is a Jack Butcher visualized value thing. But like, P. Marca was like, software is eating the world. But like Naval said, markets are eating the world. So like everything is gonna have a market attached to it. You might have Affinity coins. You might have like vegan token or carnivory token. You might have LA, San Francisco, Miami token. I was just talking to Austin from Morning Brew this morning, and I was like, dude, I heard this somewhere. I stole this from someone. I don't know who it was, but it's like Doge. I actually have 2 points here. Well, first is, let's just make the quick point. Doge is just an inside joke. And the higher the value of Doge, the funnier the joke gets. And the last people holding Doge, importantly, will be those without a sense of humor. And you look at like AMC, GameStop, and all that. People are just saying, they're doing this thing called outsider trading as opposed to insider trading, where they say, I like the coin, or I like the stock. It's like, we all just agreed we like the stock. And we don't need any other reason besides that. It's an affinity for us, right? And so memes are very important. They don't have to be just funny, of course. But I will say, maybe one thing I can like end on in terms of like trying to make like potent points or whatever that are useful is this is also another Naval quote. He says, the best founders leverage code, capital, media, and community. In like Web 2.0 world, so now I'm doing my own thing. Web 2.0 world, they leverage code. They all kind of leverage capital, but not really. They raise money from VC, but there's no markets immediately. They kind of leverage media, but they'd be like paying for Google ads, like not really. It's like even the meme, the product had to be really good. And then like leveraging community was like a new thing. Like I think people are just starting to do that now in the Web 2.0 world. If you look at Bitcoin and Doge, those two coins have such powerful memes that the founders don't even need to do work anymore because it leverages code, capital, media, and community maximally. The Bitcoin community leverages the media, the message of Bitcoin, digital gold, and has their own villains, of course. And then Doge leverages like every memer on earth. Doge is the coin for memers, and they're a decentralized marketing firm that does work automatically, right? And so what I think we have that's very powerful with Citycoins is people already understand and identify with cities. People, you're wearing a Dodgers hat, for those that can't see, like, Jack Butcher is wearing Jack Butcher is wearing a Dodgers hat. Trung is wearing a Vancouver Grizzlies. I didn't even know that was a sports team. No offense.
Yeah. We lost the NBA team like 10 to 15 years ago. So.
Yeah. Nice city, of course. But I'm like looking at cities like food on a menu. I'm like, what do I want to eat next? But cities are their own memes, and people identify with them just like they identify with sports teams. And yeah, essentially, memes and markets go very well together. It's like peanut butter and jelly. I think if I were to summarize what Jack was saying, it'd be memes and markets. Memes and markets go together in this next stage of tech.
Patrick, you're blowing my mind right now. So I had two more questions. Okay. I didn't want to blow past your time, but super quickly was the first one was because you're involved in kind of the city building movement or crypto-based city building. Who have you looked into the past at, like I said, like Lee Kuan Yew, Bismarck, that have been able to conjure up, memes in their time to build a nation state or a city state? Who do you, not necessarily you have to agree with anything they do, but who would you look at and be like, oh my God, these guys are freaking amazing at what they're doing? And the second question I had was, if the culture and places that are popular is like what would be really helpful for memes, could you just map like the top tourist destinations? And if you were to turn on that Citycoin, like Rome and Venice would just rise to the top. Like, would you see that happen?
There's a handful. On the second one, there's a handful of filters you'd apply. It's like, one is like, is it a startup city? Is it hospitable to startups and like Web3 founders? Two, is the mayor on Twitter? You need to hold someone accountable. The market needs someone to yell at or someone to praise. Yeah. So that's like the CEO of the city, and you kind of like you give them the market. Is the city desirable? Is it memeable? There's some cities that are great startup cities that have great mayors, and people just don't really like focus on them. Like Tallinn, Estonia should be bigger for what it is. For example, Tel Aviv punches way above its weight. Like they innovate to survive out there. So that's another thing. But I don't know if the mayor's on. Maybe the mayor. I don't know. Maybe the mayor's on Twitter. I haven't checked. Your first question, like who do I look up to?
Or learn from. I know you study a lot of individuals and history.
Yeah. So Satoshi Nakamoto. It's like as time passes, people are like, is Satoshi a time traveler because they got everything right. I like what Satoshi did because the meme was so strong and the virtue was so strong that they could just step away and it'd still operate directionally correctly and have its impact on the world. I haven't done as much research on Lee Kuan Yew as I should, but I've heard anecdotes from like my friend Balaji Srinivasan, who I'm constantly talking to. Balaji is a huge inspiration too. Like he introduced me to that book, The Sovereign Individual, like 6 years ago. I've read that book like cover to cover like 20 times. So I'm sure there's stuff deep seated in my subconscious from that book that like pop out. Francis Suarez was a big inspiration. He is a new archetype. He's CEO of the city. We hadn't seen that before. Hadn't seen a city be operated like a startup before. Now we have. We see him competing for new customers. We see him essentially raising funds, not just through Miamicoin, but also through raising his tax base by recruiting like big funds to like move to Miami. So he's always in fundraising mode, just like he's recruiting and fundraising, just like every great founder should be doing, like hiring great talent. It's like he's nailed that. And honestly, I think he actually could be the next president, like soon. Who else? I've done a lot of talk, like speaking with like, Ryan Shea and Munib Ali, who are like founders of Stacks. Done so much like game theoretical thinking with those guys. Yeah. That's probably
No, I love that. Those are great. Those are all fantastic examples. I got no more questions on my end, Jack and Bilal.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. I know we're running a couple minutes over, so I don't know if you're okay to stay for a minute, but yeah, no, that was awesome, man. Sure. I'm still trying to figure stuff out in my head from some of the stuff you said, so that's normally a great.
I just wanted to condense as much as possible.
I love it.
No, it's great. It's like
this is brilliant.
A lot of thinking to do afterwards.
Cool.
Love it.
What city should be next? Thank you, Bilal. I appreciate it, and thanks, Trung. What city should be next?
Saigon.
Is Saigon or Ho Chi Minh? Is it? Which do you call it?
Well, I'll tell you well, Saigon and Ho Chi Minh are functionally it was obviously named Ho Chi Minh City after the South fell. But the locals there still call it Saigon. It's just the foreigners. And Saigon geographically is District 1, which is like basically downtown.
Yeah.
That's where it's kind of referred to. But
what's the ticker? It's gotta be a three-letter ticker.
Well, you can do the airport SGN.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
Well,
people want to do Austin, Texas next.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned, I mean, what about New York? Because obviously it's one. Are you based in New York, by the way, or where are you now?
I'm in LA. In LA. Sorry, you said
Uh,
New York's tough. New York's tough because they have so many backwards laws. It's like you can't even buy crypto in New York. Like what the
exactly?
They're like trying to like lose their financial capital of the world status. Like it seems that way.
Yeah.
Down to the beach.
Funny enough, I mean, London punted it with Brexit, right? So I mean, it wouldn't be funny if New York 5 years later just kind of lost its opportunity too.
You know what could happen though? Is maybe the community just launches New York, and that protocol contribution just grows, and that bag gets bigger and bigger. And New York is like, the citizens are like, come on, pick up this thing, but we need to get out of our own way and adjust some regulations in order to do so.
De Blasio's crushing motorbikes in it or something. De
Blasio sucks. De Blasio, like, I have not met one De Blasio supporter, and I have met hundreds of New Yorkers. I lived in New York like a year and a half ago. Not met one De Blasio supporter. I think like De Blasio is like an accident, whereas like the new mayor, Eric Adams, I think is like a rational centrist. He's Democrat rational centrist. He's like exactly what New York needs, honestly. I'm very bullish on Eric Adams.
I don't know.
Did he say center of Bitcoins, Bilal?
He said center of Bitcoins with an S, which made me love him. And also I loved, he had a video showing parents how to check their kids' closets for drugs or something. And I was like, oh, this is the guy to fix things. So I don't know anything else about him, but
he's just quick background on him. He used to be a cop. He's very pro business. He's very pro crypto. He's an open-minded person who's not so open-minded that his brains are falling out. He's a little on the older side. I think he's in his late 50s or 60s. But he means well, and he's not trying to score any own goals. He's not trying to he's trying to fix problems. He's not getting sucked into any ideology as far as I can see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Patrick, thanks for coming on, man. I know we've kept you a few minutes over time, but this was really, really important stuff to talk about. I think it'll be cool to get an update of this maybe in a few months or 6 months or something like that, see how things are progressing. And we shared, it's Miamicoin.com, not investment advice, but I'll be checking it out myself, which is just on me. And if I lose more money like I have been doing with my NFTs, then it's all on me. So
and you're learning, man. That's the thing. You're learning no matter what.
But thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.